in the oil and gas industry in their severance tax proposal. They're saying we'll add depressed oil and natural gas prices.
You know, I always say, Randy, when you're in this business, if you want a friend, you get a dog.
What's your reaction to saying this isn't the right time to tax this?
It's never the right time, is it? I mean, they've had 3 or 4 years worth of free. Now, let me talk to all of you around this table, because anytime I talk to anybody, they just shake their heads. Here's the situation. I was just out in the state, a little story. I was out in the state of Wyoming, and I met with Governor Meade. They said, Governor, who's one of the greatest governors he says, in Wyoming? Governor Hathaway. I said, why is that? He said, well, because he put the severance tax in. I think they call it an extraction tax, and they have built up billions of dollars in reserve because they know the time will come when they won't have that in the ground anymore. So they will become poor. So they're planning ahead. That's the way they've done it. I said, well, why is he such a great governor? He said, well, you know, he was an oil and gas guy. And he proposed this extraction tax. And he walked into a reception with a bunch of oil and gas guys. And they said to him, don't you know that we supported you for re-election? He pulled a checkbook out of his pocket and he said, how much do I owe you? He then proceeded to pass the severance tax. And a big chunk of that state has accumulated wealth based on the fact that they plan for the future. They have a much, I don't know exactly what the severance tax is in Wyoming, but it's either where we are or probably higher. In North Dakota, I was just with the governor of North Dakota. When I told him what our severance tax was, he just shook his head. They have, we can't figure out whether it's 9 or 11 or 12% severance tax in North Dakota. Our severance tax here is virtually 0. Okay? So what we're proposing is that we take the 6.5%, which would make us very competitive. We would give 20% of those revenues to local communities to deal with their problems. And we take the rest of it to reduce our income tax. Now, we are basically a gas play in Ohio. We're not an oil play. We're a gas play. And the gas prices have stayed pretty stable. But you know, if you don't drill, then you don't pay. It's only when you sell that you would pay your fair percentage on the basis of the fact that you're making Ohio less wealthy. You make us a poor state. Every time you take valuable things out of the ground, you make us poor. Now, this is all part of a big tax plan. Now, the cap tax was put in about 10 years ago. And that tax plan was a very good plan for heavy industry. God bless them. We're all for them. Autos and steel and everything else. But what we know in our state is that if we continue to be described as a rust belt state, you know, where things rust, I think there's even a biblical passage that you don't want to have your stuff where things rust and moths break in and thieves break in and steal. Rust is not like a good way to be described, although it could apply a little bit to you, Randy. So what we want to do, what we are trying to do, is to change the very mix and diversify the economy of Ohio. We love the old line industries. Many of them have gone to 3D printing. Many of them, if you go to a steel mill today, Trestle will tell you, go to a steel mill today, what do you got? A guy learning how to work in a computer. So we know that there is dramatic technological improvements in those industries. But we want the Facebooks and the Googles and the PayPals and the Micros. We want all those businesses. We want advanced energy. We want medical device development. We want better imaging. We want logistics. You have to change the way you do business in this state if you are going to diversify the state away from just old line industries. And I got a message for everyone. People in this state feel good about where we are today, by record numbers, about how positive they are about the economy. If we do not make these changes, there is a tremendous risk that we will go backwards. You cannot grow anything in life without diversification. Ask the coach. If you're all defense, it doesn't work. If you're all offense, it doesn't work. If you got only running backs and no receivers, it doesn't work. If you have receivers and no running backs, it doesn't work. Right, coach? Diversification in your personal investments. Diversification in the economy of the state. And it's starting to work, Randy. We're starting to get cloud computing. We're getting data analytics. We're seeing logistics development. We're seeing the things we're seeing at the Cleveland Clinic, for example, the development of medical devices and breakthroughs, the possibility of new kinds of materials. Ask the president here of Zane State. We're starting to see it, but it's not enough. This severance tax and changing the cap tax and instituting some of these consumption taxes is designed to do what? Promote entrepreneurship in this state. You're a kid. You want to start a business, you start it in Ohio. That's why we don't want to tax small businesses up to $2 million of revenue. We don't want our young people to leave. We're getting older and sicker as a state. Look at the numbers. We want our young people to stay here. We want them to graduate from Ohio University. We want them to get exciting jobs here. And they're not all looking at working in the steel mill. Some of them want to work for Facebook. Am I right, Doctor?
That's right.
So what we're trying to do is to shift this whole tax system to a system that rewards investment, risk-taking, and we don't drive our best and brightest out of this state in exchange for some increased taxes on consumption. Now, this takes courage. As one legislator was telling me last night, well, you know, the cap tax and the severance tax is tough because some of my colleagues, they just really want to be liked. And they're really kind of concerned about re-election. And I said to him, well, we're just a month into the session. How could you be worried about re-election? But I know the answer to that. And I understand their fears and their concerns. This is a time for Ohio to continue to move forward, stamp down the gains that we've made, which have been terrific. When I tell people that we've gone from $8 billion in the hole to almost $2 billion surplus, companies notice that. And they want the taxes to come down, and they want the regulation to be fair. So that is exactly why, Lynch, I didn't want you to say just one more question. Because I think it was important for these things to be heard. What's going to happen, I don't know. I told my staff at the beginning of this budget process, success is not always defined as the final victory. It's not always defined that way. Sometimes success is defined as the need to keep fighting. Sometimes success is defined as the need to introduce new ideas whose time may not yet have come. So, you know, I don't have my ego in this budget. What I have in this budget is a plan from soup to nuts to help women have healthier babies, to make sure that we have child care so that people can go to work, so that young kids can be in early childhood development, a K-12 system with a third grade reading guarantee that is emphasizing so much good and an end to social promotion. Working with these great folks in higher education is a real plus for our state. These are the things that are working. And the fact that no one in this state gets left out. No one. You're poor, you're in the minority, you've been run over, you're developmentally disabled, you're mentally ill. You count in Ohio. You count in this state. And we're going to give you a chance to be what God made you to do. That's the way it's going to be here as long as I'm governor. No one gets left behind. But sometimes you've got to fight for it.